In the quiet town of Ridgewater, where neighbors still borrowed sugar and waved from their porches, the kind of crime that makes national headlines was never supposed to happen. But everything changed on an October morning when 32-year-old Lena Whitmore was found dead in the bedroom she had locked from the inside, a single bullet wound to her chest, her husband Evan calling 911 in a state of panic, insisting he woke up and found her that way. Yet within hours, the whispers began, the town splitting in half. Those who believed Evan killed his wife in cold blood, and those who believed someone set him up with precision. Police claimed the case was straightforward. No forced entry, Evan's fingerprints on the gun, residue on his hands. But the deeper investigators pushed, the more the case fractured, starting with the first mistake. The officer who picked up the gun with bare hands, contaminating the only clean print they might have gotten, followed by the second failure. The porch camera across the street that police didn't request until the footage automatically erased. And then the muddy footprint under the Whitmore's window that was photographed but never cast, a detail defense lawyers would later call catastrophic negligence. Interviews in the community painted a portrait of a couple no one could agree on. Neighbors insisting Evan adored his wife, saying he volunteered every weekend and doted on Lena like she was made of glass, while Lena's co-workers claimed she had confided fears, telling them Evan was jealous and controlling, the kind of man who swallowed the oxygen in a room. And the town took sides immediately, banners reading, "Justice for Lena," on one block, while others left casseroles on Evan's porch, along with handwritten notes saying, "We believe you." Forensics only fanned the flames, because while Evan tested positive for gunshot residue, so did the paramedic who checked Lena's pulse, raising questions about transfer contamination. And while prosecutors insisted the blood spatter on the wall put Evan at the firing angle, defense experts said the blankets had been moved before photos were taken, invalidating the entire pattern. And then came the phone evidence. Lena's deleted messages to someone saved only as a thread investigators believed pointed to an affair. Though the texts stopped weeks before the murder and the mystery contact was never identified, Evan's interrogation became one of the most replayed clips in town. Him hunched over the table, hands shaking, telling detectives his wife had been anxious for months, saying someone was watching the house, a claim police dismissed as stress or paranoia. But then, just days before the trial, a witness walked into the sheriff's office and said he saw a hooded figure leaving the Whitmore home at dawn. Someone taller than Evan. Someone moving like they didn't want to be seen. Yet after he failed a polygraph, the sheriff called him attention-seeking, and half the town believed the man. The other half called him a liar when the verdict came after 43 hours of deliberation. The courtroom was electrified with tension, and the foreperson's words, "not guilty," set off an explosion of emotion, Evan collapsing into tears, while Lena's family stormed out, shouting that justice had been stolen, and the town erupted. Some saying the jury saw through a sloppy investigation, others insisting a killer had just walked free. And as months passed, Evan quietly moved away, leaving behind a house no one wanted to buy and a murder that grew colder with every season. Today, the Whitmore case sits in a dusty file drawer at Ridgewater PD, unresolved, unsupported by evidence clean enough to hold up and too tangled to unravel, and the town remains forever split. One half convinced Evan pulled the trigger, the other half convinced someone else slipped into that locked room and made sure the blame would fall squarely on him. And the question that has haunted Ridgewater ever since still lingers in the air like smoke. Was Lena Whitmore murdered by the man she married, or did she fall in love with the wrong man long before the bullet was fired. The one who wanted her dead and wanted Evan destroyed. As the investigation pressed on, fault lines deepened across Ridgewater, the sheriff doubling down on Evan as the only viable suspect, while the defense team quietly assembled a list of unanswered questions that police couldn't explain, starting with the timeline, because although Evan claimed he woke around 5:40 a.m. and discovered Lena unresponsive moments later, the medical examiner placed the time of death closer to 4 a.m., a gap prosecutors said proved Evan lied. Yet phone tower data showed an unknown device pinging near the Whitmore home around 4:07, a signal police initially dismissed as irrelevant, though defense experts argued someone else could have entered the property while the couple slept. Then came the bedroom window, a detail the community obsessed over. Detectives said the latch inside was intact, and dust patterns showed no signs of tampering. But a private forensic consultant hired by the defense examined photos and claimed the interior sill displayed a disturbed pattern consistent with something being lifted and set back down, possibly the frame itself. Yet officers had never dusted that area properly because they were focused on proving the door had been locked from within. And every oversight, every shortcut, widened the crack between the two narratives forming in Ridgewater. Meanwhile, interviews revealed an unexpected tension in Lena's final weeks. Co-workers recalling she seemed restless, distracted, carrying her phone everywhere, like she was waiting for a message she didn't want anyone to see. And one co-worker claimed Lena had said she made someone angry recently, though she didn't say who. And while prosecutors latched onto this as evidence of marital conflict, the defense pointed to the deleted messages to A as proof Lena may have been involved in someone that had nothing to do with Evan at all. Behind closed doors, the police department struggled with its own fractures, junior officers voicing concern about the missing porch cam footage, the mishandled gun, and the uncast footprint. But supervisors shut them down, insisting the case was airtight. And during a leaked internal meeting transcript, an officer expressed fear that if they pursued alternative suspects, "We're gonna look like we don't know what we're doing," a line that ignited outrage when it quietly circulated through the town weeks later, fueling those who believed the investigation was flawed from the start. Then, unexpectedly, a new piece of forensic evidence surfaced, one that neither side was prepared for: a partial palm print, lifted from the underside of Lena's nightstand drawer, a place Evan's prints had never been found before. And while police argued this showed a struggle, the defense countered that the print didn't belong to Evan at all, and wasn't a match for Lena either, leaving investigators scrambling to determine who it belonged to. But before the lab could complete the analysis, the sheriff abruptly sealed the report, claiming it was not relevant to the primary suspect, a move that stunned everyone, including the lead forensic technician assigned to the case. And just when it seemed the case couldn't twist any further, another revelation emerged, one that rewrote the final hours of Lena's life. A witness came forward saying they saw Lena's car leaving the house at 3:15 a.m., long before the estimated time of death, a detail that contradicted everything prosecutors built their timeline on. But before the witness could give a formal statement, they vanished, their phone disconnected, their home emptied, and their disappearance left the defense with nothing but a name scribbled hurriedly on a sticky note. Now, as tensions reached a breaking point and the community braced for a trial they knew would tear Ridgewater apart, a final discovery was made inside a sealed evidence bag, something overlooked in the initial chaos, something that didn't belong in the Whitmore home at all, an item that raised a single chilling question. If Evan didn't kill his wife, then who was inside that bedroom the night she died? And what did they leave behind before walking into the darkness. The item discovered inside the overlooked evidence bag was a thin black wristband, the kind used to access certain private gyms and members-only facilities, and while neither Evan nor Lena had ever been members of such a place, the band carried microscopic fibers consistent with carpet found in a downtown Ridgewater office complex, fibers that sent investigators quietly scrambling because the building in question belonged to a local businessman named Adrian Kessler, a man Lena had exchanged emails with just weeks before her death, though police never disclosed the nature of those messages to the public, insisting they were irrelevant, a word that had become all too familiar in this investigation. When the defense learned of the wristband through a quiet whistleblower inside the forensics unit, they dug into Kessler's background and discovered the businessman had been in a heated legal dispute months earlier, one involving threatening messages, missing financial documents, and a private security firm he hired to monitor asset vulnerabilities, a phrase that became chilling in context when a second whistleblower revealed that Lena had applied for a job at Kessler's company shortly before her death, her resume stored on her laptop but never mentioned in the police reports. Soon after, a major breakthrough emerged. The unidentified palm print from Lena's nightstand drawer did not belong to Evan, nor to any of the officers or paramedics who entered the home, and when scanned through the state database, it produced a partial match to an individual who worked briefly as private security in the Ridgewater area, a man fired after a series of complaints involving aggression, boundary issues, and surveillance tactics that blurred legal lines. Yet before investigators could connect the dots fully, the sheriff stepped in and blocked a warrant request for the man's residence, stating the match was not conclusive. Meanwhile, the community spiraled deeper into division. Some saw the emerging evidence as proof Evan had been framed, pointing to the mysterious witness who vanished. The sealed forensic report, the withheld emails, and now the palm print belonging to someone with ties to private security, while others clung to the original narrative. Convinced these new details were desperate attempts to redirect blame away from an abusive husband, and tensions simmered so fiercely that two local businesses posted signs banning discussions of the Whitmore case on their premises. But everything changed when digital forensic analysts, hired independently by the defense, recovered fragments of Lena's deleted messages to the contact saved as A, revealing not an affair, but a warning. Lena telling A she believed someone had followed her from work, someone she thought reported to him, someone she said had tried to confront her near the parking garage, and the most disturbing fragment showed her writing, "I think he wants something I found," though what that something was remained unclear, the rest of the message irretrievable. As investigators reviewed Lena's digital footprint more carefully, they found evidence she had printed documents late one night at her workplace, documents she never brought home, but referenced in a note left in her car's glove compartment. A note that read only, "If anything happens to me, it comes back to the files." A discovery that sent shockwaves through the defense team. Yet when they contacted the workplace to request those files, they were told the printer logs from that date had been erased during a routine system purge, a purge that occurred just days after Lena's death. But the most explosive development came from a source no one expected. A retired employee from Kessler's company who reached out anonymously, claiming Lena had begun asking questions she shouldn't have asked, that she stumbled onto an internal conflict involving missing money, shell companies, and someone being paid quietly off the books. And the caller said one last thing before hanging up. A name, spoken in a shaking whisper. A name tied not to Evan, not to Kessler, but to someone far closer to the investigation, someone whose involvement could shatter everything Ridgewater thought it knew about the case. And as the defense prepared to pursue this new lead, as they gathered the fragments of a truth buried beneath fear, secrecy, and power, something happened that brought the investigation to a sudden, chilling halt. The key whistleblower, who first revealed the presence of the wristband and the sealed report, did not show up for work. Their car found abandoned on an overpass, with the engine still running and the driver's door wide open. No note, no signs of struggle. Nothing but a single fingerprint on the steering wheel, one that forensic analysts traced directly to a person whose name had never appeared publicly in the Whitmore investigation. Until now.